Hello everyone, welcome to the Mylio Photos Coffee Break. My name's Angela, and today we're going to be talking about how to correct dates on your photos. Incorrect dates can happen for a variety of reasons. Probably the most common one is you are scanning images and you're bringing those in and those do not have dates applied. The other common culprit is if you're traveling, you're using a standalone camera and you go to a different time zone and you forget to change the date in your camera. This happened to me just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to show you how to correct these things in today's presentation. Before we dive in, I do want to let you know about some of the other things we have coming up for you next week. We've got a couple of webinars for you in addition to our regular programming. So as usual, we have our Tuesday and Thursday live Q&A sessions. These are drop-in sessions where you can come in and ask questions and I'll do my best to help you. Whether you're brand new, you've been with us for a long time, everyone is welcome. On Fridays, we have these special coffee breaks, and next week's topic, let me see if I can read it up there on my screen. Looks like we're doing face tagging. Sorry, my little display is very tiny, and I had to cram on so many different events for next week. I am having trouble reading it. We also have two special webinars. The first one is going to be on Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific. That is going to be on Secure Cloud and Mylio Drive Plus. If you're curious about adding Secure Cloud and Mylio Drive Plus to your existing subscription, this webinar is for you. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons, who it works for, who it's a good solution for, and why you might want to add this to your Mylio Photos Plus subscription. You'll get all of the details plus a special discount, and we're even going to do a giveaway for a free year of Mylio Drive Plus if you're new to it. Please join us on Monday. That's at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. On Wednesday, we're going to have a partner webinar with Printique. Printique is a print company and they do photo books and prints and wall art and all sorts of really cool things. We're going to talk about your holiday gifts. So we're going to go through how to pick your best photos, how to create some meaningful gifts, keepsakes that your family is going to actually want to hold on to, and things that you can personalize for individuals in your family so you give something that is truly unique and one of a kind. That's going to be on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So lots of good stuff coming up for you next week. I hope you guys can join us. With that, let's go ahead and jump into today's presentation, which is getting dates right, how to adjust and organize your photo timelines. This is something that is really important for a lot of different reasons in Mylio. The dates affect how things display in your library. Not only does it affect your calendar view, which is obviously very date centric, but when you're sorting things in your all photos view or within a folder, the main sorting feature that most people use is going to be by date and time. So those timestamps and the dates that you add in Mylio make a huge difference in how you organize the rest of your library. So today we're going to go over why dates matter, how to edit and correct those capture dates. We'll talk about timestamps versus fuzzy dates, those non-specific dates you can add in Mylio. Some best practices for metadata compatibility. We'll talk about those time zone errors, and again, how those things affect how things sort and display inside of Mylio. So first off, why does this matter? It's because it affects how you interact with your pictures, how they sort and display across views, how they appear in the life calendar. When you click into that life calendar and you want to see everything from a specific year, month, or day, if the date's incorrect and you've got a bunch of scanned photos, or maybe the time zone was 8 hours difference, that's going to affect how those things populate, and you're not going to get a correct view. So it makes it really hard to search, browse, and tell and share those stories that are so important and why we do this. So let's go ahead and talk first about editing capture dates. Mylio Photos makes this really, really easy, and you can do it on a single photo. So you can click on an image, go into the info panel, change that date. You can select multiple images to change them all at once. And there's a slight trick that you need to know if you're working with historical photos that are more than 100 years old, because you might have noticed as you're going through and you start scrolling through and trying to get to that date, those years only go back 100 years. I'm going to show you how to get around that so you can date things that are more than 100 years old. So let's go ahead and jump over to Mylio Photos. And one more thing that I want to mention about this is that Mylio Photos writes these changes non-destructively to XMP files. It doesn't save it immediately to your file itself. That's because Mylio preserves that original file that you brought in. So it's saving it to an XMP file that lives next to your image. And so that's non-destructive. That XMP file is where Mylio puts all of the changes that you make to your images in Mylio Photos. So your originals are always preserved in the state that you bring them in. So let's go ahead and jump over to the program and talk a little bit about how to edit and change dates. So this is going to be primarily for scanned photos, images that maybe you pulled off of an old hard drive, maybe the metadata got corrupted, and the dates on them are just completely incorrect. So let's go ahead and jump in my folder view here. I'm going to go to some family history photos, and we're going to talk a bit about how to fix these. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into, let's just grab this album, and I'm going to select these images. They're all the same image, they're different edits of the same image, and I want to correct the dates on these. So in general, when these would have come in, this would have said they would have come in on the date that they were scanned, because this is an old scanned photo. If I go in and click into this, you'll see that it's, it has some shading on here from where it was in the frame. And I have already put the date on there for 1982, which is what we call a fuzzy date. But you can change this. So you can go up here to the More menu here next to Date Created, and you can choose from a variety of different formats. Now you have a timestamp, which is your year, month, day, hour, minute, seconds. That is your precise timestamp. You can also say, I know this was between January and March of 1982. Or you can say I know it was on this date, but I don't know the specific hours, minutes, seconds, month and year, season and year and decade. So you can choose a lot of different options. We also have an option here at the bottom called Undated. And this is where I put anything that I need to research. And later on, I can go into that undated section in my calendar, find all of those, and that's kind of my to-do list. So when you want to make a change, I'm going to go ahead and switch this back to the timestamp, because this is what most things are going to default to when they come in. And you'll see it's January 1, 1982. And you can go ahead and either click into this field and say, you know what, I'm pretty sure this was actually January 14th. And you can just key that right in. You can also go up here to that More menu, choose a different format, and we can go ahead and just say year, and that's 1982, and save. That's how easy it is to save and change the date on different media. If you want to do this for multiple things, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my grid view, and we can select multiple images. And again, I can change that just by going in here. All three of those are selected, and I can go here to timestamp. That changes it back to the timestamp format and hit save. And those now have that timestamp. So this is all very much up to you how you want to format this, but that is how easy it is to change these things. Now, if you have an image that is very, very old, more than 100 years different, so again, let's go ahead and click into this, and let's say I want to change the date here, or the year. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and you'll notice that if I scroll, it's only going to let me go back. Well, it's actually, the scroll has gone back further than it used to. It used to only go back 100 years. Now we go back quite a lot further. But if for some reason you're not finding the year that you want, what I suggest is choose the format that you want the date to be. So if you want it to just be the year, let's go ahead and just say we want it to be a year and save. And then you can just click into this field, keep the same formatting. So don't change it as far as the order of your year, month, date, and so forth. But you can just type in here and go, okay, you know what, that was 1983 instead. And you can go ahead and do that. Hit return on your keyboard, and that saves the date. So that's how you take care of changing dates, whether it's for a single image, multiple images, or things that are very, very, very old. Are there any questions so far before we jump forward? It looks like everything is good in the chat. Lori's got that under control. She's sharing some good links. So let's go ahead and move forward. So let's talk a bit about timestamps. Again, these are stored in your XMP metadata, and the timestamp is the universally compatible format. So using that precise timestamp, again, that's your years, month, day, hour, minute, seconds, that is going to be the most universally compatible format. Now, Mylio stores whatever format you choose in that XMP metadata, but not many other programs recognize what we call fuzzy dates, where you choose a decade or a year or a season and a year and so forth. Those are, in most cases, Mylio specific in that most other companies don't read them. So that's something to keep in mind. Depending on how you're using your photos and what you're wanting to do with the stuff that you're organizing, you may want to format everything with the timestamp format because you're sharing it with other platforms that don't read fuzzy dates. So keep that in mind. Fuzzy dates do work really well with Family Search. They work. That platform is pretty well integrated with us, but most others do not. So you'll want to keep that in mind. It is stored in the XMP metadata, and like I said, recognized by most software. Using fuzzy dates, on the other hand, this is a great option when you are just really unsure as to what this is dated as. Undated is one that I use a lot whenever I bring in a new batch of scan photos, family history photos. I mark them all as undated. And again, that's my to-do list for later on, things that I need to research. If I know when they were taken, I'll go ahead and add that information as I go through and sort them. And fuzzy dates are great if your main place for interacting with your pictures is inside Mylio Photos. It makes your calendar nice to view, it's fun to browse, and you get a little bit more leeway as to how you date those things. As I said before, the catch is not many other platforms recognize these fuzzy dates. So if you're planning on using them in other types of media, so like maybe you're uploading to Ancestry, maybe you're sharing to other family members, if they're not using Mylio, those fuzzy dates aren't going to mean anything to them. It's still going to be in your XMP metadata. You can still open up that sidecar file, see that information, but it's not going to show when you open it up and say Lightroom or Bridge or any other photo editor. They do show up, like I said, in Family Search, which is really nice. So some things to think about as you choose whether to add a timestamp versus a fuzzy date. If you know the exact date, go ahead and add the timestamp. You can always put your hours, minutes, seconds to 000, and that just kind of zeroes it out, but at least you get that timestamp on there for the correct date. If you know the approximate date, what I like to do is add a timestamp still, and then do it at the first day of whatever that time frame is. So if I know this happened in, let's say, the summer of 2020, I can go in there and say, July 1st, 2020, or whatever the first date of that season is that you know. And then you can just put a little note in your caption or the description that says approximate date. And I think that's a really good middle ground for things that work across platforms. So if you're using many different platforms to share pictures, especially those of a historical nature, sometimes adding a timestamp at the first day of whatever time period you're wanting to indicate, and then adding a note that it's approximate can kind of give you the best of both worlds. Now, if you simply don't know the date at all, I would go ahead and mark it as undated in Mylio Photos. Again, that's great for internal organization, and it's your to-do list. It's your go back and address these later, and that's going to help you work through getting all of those things done. For scan and undated, you can use the fuzzy date or you can use the undated option. It makes it easier to sort later, but again, you may want to work towards getting those into a timestamp format over time because, again, that's going to give you the best compatibility across different platforms and for sharing. All right, so some metadata best practices to keep in mind as you change dates on your pictures. You're going to want to use timestamps when possible. So when you have that information, use the timestamp format. Again, it's going to give you the best compatibility. If you have a time frame that you know this is, you can add an approximate date note in the caption or description field and just make that timestamp the first day of whatever time period it is. So if it's 1982, make that January 1st, 1982, and put your hours, minutes, seconds at 000, and then make that approximate date note in your caption. Whatever you choose to do, try to stay consistent. Pick a solution for you that works, that makes sense for you and for what your goals are, and just stay consistent. If you are doing one thing and it's working for you, keep doing it. If this new system works better for you, go ahead and adapt that into your workflow and then keep that going from this day forward. But if you're jumping around trying different formats, that's when things can get crazy. And if somebody else ever has to come over and take over that project after you, they're not necessarily going to know what's going on. So just choose a format and stay consistent with it. And that goes for your folder naming, that goes for your file names, and those kinds of things as well. Anytime you're working with metadata, face tagging, how you name people, use consistency, pick a format that you like and roll with it. Don't try to keep changing things midstream or you're just going to end up with chaos. All right, so time zone errors. This is another fun one. This is kind of the modern reason that you might need to use these time zone or these time changes inside of Mylio Photos. In addition to being able to set fuzzy dates with, year, month, date, decade, all these things, there's also an option for shift. And what this does is it gives you an option to change the timestamp by a specific period of time. So if the camera or the clock in your camera is wrong, you can adjust it. This happened to me because I went overseas. I was 8 hours difference from my home time zone, and the camera was set to California time. I went out and I shot 6,000 plus pictures, and those all have the wrong time on them. So let me show you how to do that really quick, and it's easy to take everything from an entire trip and fix it. So I'm going to jump back over here to Mylio, and I'm going to go into my folders view and into photos, my main organization here, into 2025. And I have one of my folders here. Why is it not showing? Let me go ahead and go back. And we'll go to all photos view. I'm going to just right click on this and say show in folder. There we go. And now I have this folder showing this is everything from the first day of my trip in Scotland. And if you take a look at this picture that I have selected, you'll see that it's showing 8:28 a.m. This was not 8:28 a.m. This was late in the afternoon. I want to say probably around 4 o'clock. Again, we were 8 hours difference. So everything in this folder with my big camera has an 8-hour difference in the timestamp. So I want to fix that, and I can do this really easy. I'm going to just do a Command or Control A to select everything. And then I'm going to go over here to the date created, click that more menu, and I'm going to choose the shift option. And I want to add 8 hours here. So we're going to do plus 8 hours. And then we're going to say shift. And that's going to go through and correct the metadata on those. And now those all have the correct times on them. So now if I go ahead and click on this particular image, 4:28 p.m., exactly perfect. That's how simple it is to correct time zone errors when you forget to set your camera. So that's something to consider. We also just had time change. If your camera does not automatically shift between daylight savings time and standard time, that may also need to be addressed. You can just shift that 1 hour front or back. During this particular trip, we also had 2 time changes. So from what my camera was set to what it was when I got home, there's a little bit of time zone math that I have to do, but Mylio makes those changes really easy once I figure out what days need to be changed, because Scotland goes to daylight savings time a week, 2 weeks before the States. So that was a fun thing to have to consider. I think that was all for changing the dates. Hopefully that was pretty self-explanatory. That makes sense to everybody. And just a few things about how these date changes affect your library. This changes how they sort. So when you click to sort by date and time, this changes how they're sorted. It changes where they're placed in your life calendar. If you've created calendar events that are date-based, if the date changes, that's going to put those other pictures into those events, if that's applicable. Fuzzy dates have what we call annotations. You might have noticed that. Let me jump back over here to Mylio and show you what that looks like, because a lot of people ask, what is this little symbol on my pictures? And it's a fuzzy date. It's a little equivalency symbol. So let me go ahead and find one of these and go ahead and pop in here. And I must have annotations turned off, so let me go ahead and turn those back on. Annotations. All right, so there's fuzzy date shown on. And let me make these a little bit bigger. Maybe that's why it's not showing. All right. So you know what, you guys? I think I just found a bug. I'm using the next release version, so I'm beta testing right now. And my annotations for these are not showing. And I know that many of these have fuzzy dates. So like this one, for instance, is 1958. It should have a little symbol down here in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and file that as soon as we're done with this session and make sure that that gets fixed. But if you notice a little equivalency symbol, so like a little wavy equals symbol in a circle at the bottom right of your pictures that you've added a fuzzy date to, that just means it has a fuzzy date. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to take any action on it. It's just a little indication that that is a fuzzy date. And if you don't like having that there, you can always go up here in annotations and turn that off. And that's going to make that go away, and you don't have to look at it if you don't want to. All right. Michael's saying, please describe why called a fuzzy date. So it's anything that's non-specific. If it's not specific, then we call it fuzzy. You can call it non-specific if you like. I mean, if you search the manual, you'll find both the words non-specific and fuzzy in the manual. Michael's asking, how do you access undated images? Excellent question. I did mean to address that. So you're going to go to the calendar view. You're going to double click it to go to the top level, which is your decade view. And then you're going to scroll to the very, very top. That's where you're going to find all of your undated media. And everything that you need to address and put dates on is going to be in this section. And as you go ahead and add those dates, whether it's another fuzzy date or a specific timestamp, it'll jump to where it belongs in the calendar. It will no longer be part of this collection. All right, let's see here. So just to kind of recap what we talked about, correcting dates is part of building an accurate and organized timeline. I suggest combining timestamps and fuzzy dates along with clear captions so you know what you're doing. Stay consistent, pick a method that works for you. I really like to use timestamps whenever possible, but if Mylio is the primary place that you're interacting with your media, please feel free to go ahead and use your fuzzy dates. They are very useful and they do make Mylio a lot of fun to use. But if you're using other platforms and you need cross-platform compatibility, timestamps are going to be the way to go. Regularly review your undated photos. You can see when we popped in there in mine, I have a lot that I need to address. I think a little over 1,000. So it's an ongoing process, making sure that those stay done. All right. So make sure you're editing and correcting your capture dates. Hopefully you guys walk away with this with an understanding of when to use timestamps versus fuzzy dates or non-specific dates. Add approximate notes for unclear timelines. So use those caption and description fields to add that context. And when you need to fix those time zone errors with the shift option. With that, let's go ahead and wrap up. I just want to remind you that we've got lots going on next week. I think we have live events every single day. So we've got webinars on Monday and Wednesday. The first one's going to be on Secure Cloud and Mylio Drive Plus. So if you're curious about using offsite backup and how Mylio Photos can help you accomplish that, make sure you check out that particular webinar. On Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Printique and printing and holiday gifts and how to pick awesome gifts for your loved ones. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tuesday and Thursday, we have our live Q&As, and Friday, we have another coffee break, and we're going to be talking about face tagging. So with that, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.